Jamaican, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So why is it that this music, talking about equal rights, talking about justice, talking about one love, is just coming from this, from California? It's a third world little small island.
Yeah, right.
Shouldn't everybody be speaking about these things?
Right.
For the world to change, for true equality to exist, we all need to acknowledge the inequalities of poor people, of black people, of marginalized people. So I wanted to be a part of that discussion, and I thought, from the California Bay Area, I must be able to reach people that maybe this music doesn't reach. And so Groundation began.
Wow. So how did you get the strength to pop into this music world that you're talking about?
I really don't know. I just loved it so much. And then I would just be writing music. So it came very natural to me. As soon as I was 10, 11 years old, began playing the guitar. And I knew even when I wanted to go to university, I was getting my jazz degree, jazz performance.
Which university?
Sonoma State
Sonoma State.
University. It's the same university that after getting my degree, I would go back and teach.
Wow.
The history of reggae music is a course that I developed.
Wow.
I taught for 2.5 years in the music department there. So where did the strength come from? I don't know, but it's inside of me, and for whatever reason, people responded. I realized in starting with the first records of Groundation that no record label was going to really support it. You have this white kid singing reggae music. It's long form songs, because jazz is still a part of my vocabulary. We would move out of the key centers, non-diatonic harmonies, play polyrhythmic, odd time meters, long songs, long forms, some through composed. So I knew this wasn't a recipe for pop sensation or radio hits. So I started my own record label and said, I'm gonna do it. And it was the third record, Hebron Gate, that I really invested everything in. And at those times, the first albums, Young Tree, Each One Teach One, Hebron Gate, this is all just songs I wrote myself. And then later, as the band developed, we began to write music together. So I think if we didn't get that support from the fans around the world, it wouldn't have happened, because the music is not so, straightforward.
Okay, here's a hard question. Can you relate the reggae music to the Jewish faith?
Of course. I mean, the whole backbone of Rastafari comes from Christianity. It comes from the Old Testament. It's really a continuation of the line. The idea of Rastafari in the Kebra Nagas, the books that were removed from the Bible, the idea is Solomon and his son David traveled to Ethiopia and brought the Ark of the Covenant. And so the blessing of God bestowed upon Ethiopia all the way through until His Majesty Haile Selassie came. So it's a direct lineage to Judaism with King David.
What is it, Shinshani? What is the name of the community?
Shashamani.
Shashamani.
Selassie set aside for the Rastaman to come.
Have you been there?
I've never been to Ethiopia.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and what it represents?
Yes, His Majesty, upon learning of the Rastafari movement, the Jamaican government flew him to Jamaica to supposedly calm down this cult that they called. But His Majesty came and people were shocked. Hundreds of thousands of Rasta came out of the bush to meet His Majesty.
Wow.
Because that's 1966. And since the crowning of His Majesty in 1930, Rastafari was growing in Jamaica. So it's really a black power movement. And when Selassie came, met with the elder Rasta, and this is when he gave a portion of land in Ethiopia for the Rastafari community to repatriate, to go back to Africa, and they could have their farms, their land, develop it for nothing, for free. The land is there for them. And this day, Shashamani is growing, and there's thousands of Rasta living in the community now as we speak.
Talk a little bit about when the king came to Jamaica? How did he get invited, and what did he do when he landed in Jamaica?
Yeah, he was invited because this is the crown. This is still, the British controlling what was going on in Jamaica. In the 60s, 1962, they get independent. And they begin to put pressure on Bustamante and Norman Washington Manley, the first prime ministers of Jamaica, to get rid of this cult. They hear these whispers of this Rasta thing that's really taking hold there. Because Jamaica is an island of spiritual people. People who were taken on the boat from Africa, surviving all the trips through all the Caribbean. If you look at the Caribbean, Jamaica is way to the west. You have to travel a long way to get there. So the real strong Africans is who's in Jamaica. And Christianity, this is a long history. As I said, I taught the history of reggae music. So
this is good.
It's a huge history. And initially, the British didn't care about Christianizing the Africans in Jamaica. And so Jamaica developed this Mayo Kumina, this African community. First of all, when the Spanish first took the island, the British fought the Spanish for Jamaica. During the fight, the British liberated the slaves that the Spanish had to fight the Spanish. Once they defeated the Spanish, the British said, all right, you go back to being slaves. And they said, no.
No, man.
No, Rasta, no, man, yeah. We're going to go to the mountain. And so this began the Maroon culture. And they kept their traditions from Africa. So much so that even musicologists from West Africa, they go to Jamaica to learn about their drumming and their techniques because they've kept it. Even to this day, the Maroons fought the British so hard that the British said, okay, this part of Jamaica is yours.
Really?
And it's outside the governing body of Jamaica. They have their own laws, their own government, and it exists to this day.
The mountains?
Up in the mountains, yeah. Yeah, there was a leeward side and the windward side of the Maroons. But this is the Blue Mountains. And
Blue Mountains are by the capital, or is that by where Bob Marley...
It's in the middle of the island.
Middle.
Yeah, it's just if you go from Kingston to the north, it's these mountain ranges right there.
It's all the mountains.
It's all the mountains, yeah. It's the tallest mountains there. Spanish town, San Diego de la Vega was the first capital. And then when the British destroyed Spanish town, the Maroons went to those mountains and they developed Kingston as the capital city. And Christianity, as I was saying, wasn't really forced on the slaves until this Maroon battle. Then they said, all right, we're going to force Christianity. But the Africans didn't want it. They did not take to it. It was an American named George Lyle in 1783 from Atlanta, Georgia, the first ever Baptist preacher. He was a slave, George Lyle, but he learned the Bible so much that the slave master gave him his freedom. And he traveled to only one country outside of the U.S., and it was Jamaica.
Wow.
And he goes to a place called Racecourse in the middle of Kingston, puts his box, and begins preaching the Bible, Christianity. But this is the Baptist way. The Baptist way preaches the Bible differently. It says this is not a story about some white European people. This is a story about you, the African, and the liberation of Moses and the children of Israel is you. And that is what inspired the African to take on Christianity, leading to Sam Sharp, leading to Paul Bogle, leading to Marcus Garvey, leading to the Rastafari movement. So it's all connected.
That's okay. What is the faith of the Jamaican people now? It's Christian, it's reggae.
Yeah,
what is it?
It's very much Christian island.
Very
still.
much, but
this is why the government of Jamaica hasn't really embraced reggae or Rastafari or Bob Marley even though Bob Marley is this big person who put Jamaica on the map. He's not considered a national hero, and I don't think they're going to make him a national hero because Rasta has this stigma, this rebel, this ganja smoking, this thing that they don't want. But as Mutabaruka said, people could go anywhere to go see a nice beautiful beach. They come to Jamaica because of reggae and Rastafari. So it's still very strong Christian country.
So it's a Christian country. How strong is the reggae faith, so to speak?
I mean, reggae is different now because now you talk about the music.
Yeah.
The Rasta faith is still there, but it's not as militant. Originally, these Rastaman were in the bush, and because of the laws in Jamaica, they couldn't get any job, they couldn't get any of these opportunities, and so they stayed in the bush. And in fact, Horsemouth, the great drummer, tells the story that they used to be upset with Bob Marley. They said, Bob Marley, why are you traveling all over the world and playing our music? You shouldn't do that. You should force people to come to Jamaica if they want to hear our music. So everybody has to flex, and even Horsemouth today says he feels bad. If Bob Marley was alive today, he'd say, you know what, Bob, you were right. So the Rasta community is still there and it's still strong, but it got watered down from the success of Bob Marley. Record executives all over the world flying to Jamaica, signing anybody with dreadlocks. So, you know, because of that, it's grown, but it's also doesn't have that militancy that it did from its inception.
Who is Horsemouth?
Leroy Horsemouth Wallace is a drummer. He was there in Studio One drummer from Foundation time. He's still alive today. And he's the star of one of Jamaica's greatest movies called Rockers, released in 1978. But he played on all of the classic, even the Bob Marley stuff and Burning Spear from the Studio One original days. So, you know, he's a person who we, Groundation, have done a lot of work with. He's played drums for our tribute to Bob Marley. And we did an album called Rockamovia with Horsemouth. And he's just a wonderful person that, you know, he's just got vibes. But he's 80 years old now, so, you know.
Talk a little bit about how your sound is pretty unique. It's a mixture of
It
reggae,
is.
jazz,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
maybe something else. I don't know.
Yeah, funk,
Funk.
you know, I mean, soul and blues and R&B and, you know, all the music that and we love. But yeah, jazz and reggae is it. I know that there was somebody who wrote in an article about Groundation, and they said it's Burning Spear meets John Coltrane. So, and that to me is
Out there.
yeah, but it's true because we push boundaries, we improvise.
You push the jazz really strong into
Yeah.
the reggae. So, I mean,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, we're the only group that I know from the beginning that did these odd time meters, because reggae is a 4/4
Right.
tempo. Check it, check it, check it, check it 1, check it 2, check it 3. But the minute you start doing 5/4, 7/4, you start messing with.
Do some of that. Do some of the.
Sure.
Five.
That's Nyabingi in 5/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1. We played Picture on the Wall and some things this evening. So that is a bar of 3 and a bar of 4. Doom chicka boom, get doom chicka boom, chicka back, chicka back, chicka doom chicka boom, chicka boom, chicka boom, chicka back, chicka back. So that's, you know, that's how we kind of make our own style, and it wasn't anything like let's do something strange or let's try something in an odd time. It's just from singing and playing, recording the music, listen back. Oh wow, you know, Weeping Pirates we played tonight also. It has bars of 3, bars of 4 mixed, and you know, it makes it so that song sounds like no other song. And I love that.